So you just realize how true and real the Bible is. And then when we just teach it as theological, propositional truth, we so divorce it from real life. We don't think of eating good food as a spiritual activity, but it's a lot like prayer.
Yeah.
It's just as spiritual as prayer. We don't think of, moving our bodies, exercise. We haven't talked about that because that's another part of it. Learning to move, learning to stretch, learning how your body works. It's all integrated.
Welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast, where we provide education and inspiration to help guide you on your journey to look better, feel better, and most importantly, heal better. I just finished with one of the best and most powerful conversations I've ever had in my life. I promise you're in for a treat with today's episode. Today, my guest is Pastor Paul Berthiaume from Jacob's Well Church in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Pastor Paul is my family's pastor, and what he is doing right now at Jacob's Well is something that I have literally prayed for the last 2 decades. A church that is put into full action the scripture from 1 Corinthians that talks about our bodies being a temple of the Holy Spirit. You're going to hear all about their Embodied program, which is an 8-week-long program teaching people through scripture and lifestyle how to get mentally, physically, and spiritually healthy. You're going to hear about the Risky Behaviors series, as well as countless other things that are changing the lives of so many Christians in a lasting and meaningful way that I personally have never seen before. And now for my conversation with Pastor Paul Berthiaume. Pastor Paul.
Yes.
Welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast.
Thank you. I can't tell you how excited I am to be here today.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I am so excited for this conversation. Some of the things that you are doing at your church, which we'll really dive into today, are things that I literally have prayed about going on 2 decades now. And so, again, super excited to have you here. And one of the things that I love anytime I'm hearing about somebody's story in any way is how they got to where they are right now.
Right.
And so that's how I'd love to kick it off. Just hearing your personal journey of what brought you to some of the things that you're teaching at Jacob's Well currently.
Yeah. Well, I was born at a very young age, right? So, my whole life, I've been a active, healthy person. So I've been the person who has tried to just be alive while I live. You know what I mean? I've also been a person who's historically just struggled with issues of health. So I grew up living the standard American life, standard American diet, and was not mindful about what I was eating unless I was trying to do the thing of losing weight, and then did all the things. So I've done the yo-yo dieting for years. I've done the up and down thing that so many of us have struggled under. I'm also a very curious person, so I'm constantly looking for answers. So what ended up happening for me was I just started asking just deep questions about nutrition, about food as medicine. I came across several different podcast teachers, but the person probably had the biggest influence on me was Mark Hyman.
Yes,
just the idea of food as medicine, and started just experimenting, and what it would look like to just eat real food. So anything that didn't fit the category of food, I wasn't going to eat anymore. And so you say, well, what does that mean? Well, food is a miracle.
Yes.
It is God's creation where he captures the energy of the sun and he puts it in a form that our bodies can receive. And it does 3 things. It causes us to grow. You think of a single cell growing to become a human being. That's remarkable.
Yes.
And then you think about it heals us. So every day we do soft injuries to ourselves and sometimes significant injuries to ourselves, and our body needs to be an ever-present process of healing and renewing. And then, of course, it gives us energy just to live and move. And so I started understanding that a big part of it was not restricting what I was eating, but it was about changing what I was going to eat. I actually eat probably more food than I ever have before.
I tell people that all the time because I think they envision a lot of times that, for instance, my wife and I eat like little birds.
Yeah, no.
And we eat a massive amount of food.
Yes. I just eat differently.
Yeah.
And I became educated about what food is and what's in food, and learned a ton about the standard American diet, which is, of course, is SAD, right?
Yes.
SAD. And
Not by coincidence, I don't think.
No, yeah, that's right. And then the idea of what sugar is doing in our life, what processed food is doing in our life, issues about drinking calories. And I just started making deep lifestyle changes in my own life. This led me to lead our staff, actually through one of our staff members, Ryan Robinson, who's equally passionate as one of the co-creators of Embodied, lead the church through something called Whole Life Challenge, which was basically just a 30-day challenge to just eat real food, water, just get rid of the toxic stuff in your life. And it really had a huge impact on our staff.
And that was strictly staff, not congregation involved in that in any way.
And so at the same time, our church went through a season where we just wanted to quit being that church that taught people a lot of things about God and a lot of things from the Bible and a lot of things about theology, but it never connected with life deeply. I mean, we weren't doing bad things, and we needed to do the things we were doing, but it just didn't land. And so it started for us not in terms of physical health. It actually started with emotional health for us.
Okay.
So we looked at our region, we looked at the mental health crisis, we looked at the number of people struggling with depression and meds and all the things. And we said, we started discovering this material called Emotionally Healthy Church and Emotional Health Relationships. We got passionate about it. So we led the church just to this process of becoming emotionally healthy and relationally healthy. The staff asked me one time, why are you so passionate about this? And I said to him, because I'm tired of going to church with mean people. People who know the Bible, read the Bible, study the Bible, but because they're emotionally unhealthy, relationally unhealthy, because they have never dealt with things like grief or trauma or family of origin issues, they know a lot of the Bible, but it's never internalized to make them a good person from whom good things naturally flow.
So insightful.
Yeah.
It's something that I talk about quite a bit.
Yeah.
Why are Christians mean?
Yes, why are they mean? Well, and part of it is we don't have a good theology of suffering. We don't have a good theology of understanding our family. We don't integrate our faith with life. And so we talk about following Jesus and having life and health and peace, and we're just not experiencing that. And living in that dissonance will either cause people to abandon the faith or to fake it in a way that we become pharisaical. So we have these incredible processes, these classes, these pathways within community to become emotionally healthy, to become spiritually healthy, to become relationally healthy. We have a financial healthy track. It's just so many wonderful ways. And then it just became clear to me that we were lacking on having a clear theology of the body that led us to live in harmony with God's design. We were not teaching people that our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit, we're called to care for them, and that if we're not physically in a good place, we can't be spiritually in a good place. We can't be emotionally or relationally in a good place. Again, we were right. So we went out and we looked for a curriculum, and we just didn't find one that existed. Not that was saying everything that we were saying, a holistic view of health that it begins with spirituality, and then it goes to our relationships, our emotions, how we spend our time, how we interact with people, and then how we take care of our body. And this holistic health became this program we came up with, Embodied. So we wrote it, and then last fall we piloted it with a group of about 35 people, and we were just blown away. One, with how it resonated with people, and then just the changes that people were able to make. Because it's not a diet, it's not a weight loss program. It's just developing a theology of the body that then here's a way to live where you design a life where the healthy choice becomes the easier choice. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. So you teach the principles of, nutrition, hydration, sleep, relational connectedness, stress management, from a biblical perspective, from a Jesus perspective. And then you integrate that, and then you make a plan. Say, this is we always say, you start with our rule of life. A rule of life is a pattern for living, and then you create your own. And then from there, you just keep building on it. To take your tagline, you make health your hobby.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard from so many people that are going through this program. And as you know, tonight will be in week 6 of the 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But that's what I've heard from so many people, that this program has led them to be able to do that, where they actually are making health their hobby, because they see it from a different perspective than they've seen it before. Where I've always talked about, God food versus man food, and incorporated my beliefs in Christianity into my discussions for many years with my patients. Yeah. But obviously not to this level, and not like Embodied does. And I think that's really why it has just stuck with so many people in a really good way.
It was shocking to me, a pastor for 38 years, when I went back 2-3 years ago now and started studying, what does the Bible say about health, nutrition, food? An enormous amount. Everything from our core verse to our body are temples of the Holy Spirit. Make your body a living sacrifice. What we do in our body matters. What we do to our bodies matter. What we do to other people's bodies matter. And the Greek word for body is just that. It's our physical body, that we are embodied spirits. And then when you realize that as Christians, we believe in a literal return of Christ. He's literally physically coming back. And that there'll be literally physical resurrection, that we are always going to be embodied spirits, that to understand that, to care for our bodies, to not abuse our bodies, to not misuse our bodies, becomes a huge thing. And then when you look at the Old Testament, the children of Israel come out of Egypt and they're slaves. So they're enslaved to a world that, what we say in Embodied, the world is designed to make you unhealthy. So we have an enemy who has corrupted food and economics and relationship and technology and causes us to be busy. And so if you're just going to go with the flow, you're going to get sick. So when the Bible says, don't let the world squeeze you into its mold, well, what does that mean in terms of how we live with our bodies? Because right after that, he goes and says, make your body a living sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So children of Israel come out of Egypt, they're enslaved, and now they need to learn how to live free. And so God gives them the Old Testament law. And the Old Testament law is a pattern for them to live that was appropriate for their times. And throughout the Old Testament law is all this wisdom. Now for them there were binding rules, and some of those rules are not binding for us now, but the wisdom is still there. And so, the idea that they needed a rule of life and a way to live. And if you read the law, there's certainly things about how to worship and some stuff you'd expect from the Bible about God and what we believe. But there's an enormous amount about what you eat and how you're supposed to move and how you're supposed to rest and mold. There's a whole chapter on mold in there.
I think people are blown away once they actually realize that. Because I don't think there's too many people out there that think the Bible, and then, we know it's a guide to how to live our lives, but not when it comes to nutrition or health advice.
Well, and that's the deal. And so all this wisdom is there. And then he says this at the end, says, okay, I've given you this law. He says, now I've laid before you a blessing and a curse, life and death. You must choose that you might be blessed, you and your children and your offspring. God has filled this world with blessing. He's filled it with good things, happiness and joy and beautiful food and sunshine and movement and exercise and discovery. He's filled it. And the world will take blessing, it'll corrupt it and make it into a curse. And so when we live by the world standards, we take the things God intended to be blessing and be making curse. So food, that the world is filled with, processed and toxins and sugars and dyes and all the things that was meant to give us life now gives us death, was meant to give us energy now makes us sluggish and tired, which meant to heal us, makes us sick, all the things. And so he says, I lay before you a blessing and a curse, life and death, you must choose. What if we thought about that in terms of our lifestyle? So I literally do this, I go up and I say, I used to love to eat at McDonald's fries. They're addictive. They're literally addictive. They're designed to make us addicted. And I can look at them now and I can say, okay, before I just looked, what I say, they're going to taste great and I love these things. But now I say, okay, what kind of oil and what is a potato going to do and what's the salt going to do and what's going to do to my blood sugar, what's going to do for my sluggish, and am I going to be hungry 2 hours later? And I know all the curse of it now. Yeah. So now whenever I look at something like those McDonald's fries, I ask myself, is this going to bless my body or is it going to curse my body? Is it going to bring me life, or is it going to bring me death? And I look at that in terms of how I sleep, or how I exercise, or phone time. And when you start thinking from that perspective, it changes everything. The New Testament expression of this is the wide road, narrow road. And Jesus said, there's a wide road and a narrow road. You got to walk the narrow road. The wide road, he says, is very popular. It starts easy, lots of people on it, very, very wide, but it always leads to death. Doesn't matter if you want it to lead to death, doesn't matter if you had a great childhood, whatever, it leads where it leads. He said, but there's a narrow road. Few people find it, and it's hard, but it leads to life. And so life, and when we take that, certainly it has application as Christians in terms of following Jesus, that Jesus is the narrow road. But it actually is, in the Sermon on the Mount, it's proverbial wisdom saying, whenever we're at a crossroads in life where we're making a life change, we need to understand there's a narrow road, wide road. And when we start applying this to how we live and our relationships and our food and our exercise, man, it's paradigm shifting. So when people say there's something about this program that's different, well, it's connecting. One of our 7 pillars is mindset. It's bringing the truth of God's word and saying, okay, what are the things you're believing, you're assuming? Let's challenge them with truth, and let's get our minds renewed so that we can be transformed by the renewing of our minds. So,
part of our mission at Foundational Health is researching and partnering with wellness products that we trust. Our one-stop health shop is loaded with brands that we not only have extensively researched, but also trust and use ourselves. You can find everything from low EMF, red light therapy devices, grounding mats and sheets, non-toxic mattresses, saunas that help you detox faster without toxifying you, the best water and air filtration systems on the market, high-quality supplements and foods, exercise and fitness products, our favorite books, and so much more. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Health Shop, and you'll find the links to countless products that you can not only trust, but also many that we have discounts set up just for you. Now let's get back to the podcast. It's so powerful. And I think for a lot of people, and I'm sure you've experienced this now with people going through Embodied, like everything that you just described about food, how you look at it differently and how you make those choices. For a lot of people, that all they do right now is that standard American diet and the standard modern lifestyle. Right. And to think about looking at things differently initially is very overwhelming.
It is very overwhelming. I mean, because I think one is, we tell people this isn't a diet. Say, well, what do you mean by that? It's not a diet. Well, a diet is taking the standard American diet and doing less of it, or doing a different version of it. So I remember one of the things I did years ago is I did one of the programs. I've done so many of the programs. I've done Medifast. I've done HMR. So it's the one you go to the hospital and they have you got to lose weight, so they put you on HMR. And what it is basically is you drink these shakes forever until you lose weight, and you eat this horribly processed food in these plastic containers. And the whole idea is they say you're going to be in a box, right? You're going to be in this box, and you can't have anything that's not in the box. And so you do this, and you starve yourself, you make yourself miserable, and you lose weight. You're also, I'm sure, just losing, you're losing muscle, and you're depleting nutrition and all the other things. But that's just another way of taking the standard American diet and say, okay, I'm going to do a different version of it. Or I'm going to just say, I'm going to keep eating McDonald's for only once a week. Or I'm going to start eating. This is just saying, I'm going to shift the paradigm.
Yes.
That I'm going to shift the paradigm from, I just don't eat that stuff anymore. Why not? Well, because it's a curse. It's going to make me sick. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. It doesn't matter how much I like it. And it lies to me. It says it's going to make me happy. It's going to make me sad. It says it's going to make me feel better. It's going to make me feel worse. And, it's going to give me energy. It's actually going to sap my energy. And when I have this mental paradigm now, where I'm calling it out, And then I say, okay, I'm not going to do it. What am I going to do? And then I start realizing the blessing that's out there. One of my favorite things about Embodied is the cooking night. So the cooking night...
Without a doubt, my favorite so far.
Yeah.
I loved it all. But
There you go.
gosh,
Right.
that was amazing.
Well, this is where... So the first week we get together, we talk about mindset, and we talk to people about what are your beliefs about food? What are the stories you're telling yourself? You say things like, I don't like vegetables. Well, that's a story you're telling yourself. You're saying to yourself, well, I can't lose weight or I have bad genes. Well, that's a story you're telling yourself. So we're just going to call out what we're believing, and then we're going to ask Christ to, shine light on it, and then ask whether or not that's true. We're going to bring evidence and reason, and then we're going to start testing it by doing something different. And then we come and we say, okay, here's the rule of life that we're going to have for you people. And so we take away some stuff. We say, okay, no refined sugars, no added sugars. We say things like no processed foods. We say things like just healthy olive oils, those kinds of things like that. We're going to encourage you to do just the best source proteins you can find. And the truth is, when you create that kind of a standard, it cuts out something like 86% of what you can buy in a grocery store.
Yes, probably at least.
Yeah, so we actually I did the AI tells me.
So
it's
that wasn't
86%.
just a number you threw out there.
50% of statistics are made up on the spot, right? Just like that one, right? But this one is actually AI. It's the best AI quality statistic you can find. So it was 86% because, again, there's either oils or processed food or it's been heat or cut up or dyed or all that kind of stuff. And so we say, this is the thing. I say, we're going to give you a week to think about it, prepare yourself, get your kitchen ready, and then the next week we're going to do the first week is on nutrition. We talk just very general about the three kinds of macronutrients, and we talk about just about eating real food, and we define real food at those three things. It's, it gives energy, it causes you to grow, it causes you to heal, and then we say, okay, this is the week, and then we have a tracking system, and then people live in this diet for a week. Now, for some people, that is paradigm shifting because we take away, we talk about no grains. We talk away, actually, we encourage people to not do beans and things like that because what we're trying to do is get them detoxed from the standard American diet. And they say they spend a week radically changing how they're going to live. And so if you're eating cereal every morning and lots of bread and sugary stuff and ice cream and you're drinking your calories, it's all water. We're encouraging people to drink water and some coffee. It's a shock to your system. We warn people that at the beginning of this, you're probably going to feel worse before you feel better. Right?
Sugar detox.
You're going to get headaches. You're going to be grumpy. You're going to have hunger cravings. And just keep eating it. And if you're really hungry, eat more of what you can. So we're telling you, don't eat less, eat more. Eat till you're full.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways you can tell if you're really hungry. Is that if you want to eat something, you just feel really hungry, but healthy things just sound horrible, don't sound good, well, you're not really hungry. There's something else driving you. It's a craving, it's a sugar, right? So people do this for a week, and they're through the detox, and then the third week we come and we cook together. Because so much of what Embodied is about the community component. You're in a group together, and learning to cook again, or maybe for the first time, and then doing it with people is all part of the thing. But you'll come into our kitchen, and you'll look around, and the kitchen's just full of probably 70 different fruits and vegetables.
It's just beautiful walking in and just seeing that table.
Nuts and seeds and herbs and spices and 4 kinds of the highest quality proteins, grass-fed, grass-finished, farm-raised, salmon from Superior Fresh, just incredibly high-quality foods, all laid out. None of it's cooked. There's beautiful cookware. There's information about just what you can cook. And then there's not a processed thing in there. One of the other things we do in the Nutrition Weeks is we teach people to read labels. And that is mind-blowing to people.
Yeah.
And we talk about, there's 61 terms that the FDA lets you use for sugar.
Yeah, isn't that insane?
Yeah, they're hiding it.
45 for MSG, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
The world's designed to make us unhealthy because they design food to sell it to make money, not to cause people to be healthy. So you have to be crazy intentional to make a choice. And again, the Bible talks about that. Do not be of this world. We're in this world, we're not of this world. It tells us to not let the world squeeze us into its mold. We'll apply that to health, nutrition, and food because it does apply. So these people come in and I just ask them, what do you see? And they see color, and some of these people have never cooked with spice. Some of them, we literally have had people who've never chopped up vegetables go through Embodied.
Wow.
As crazy as it sounds. One lady, beautiful lady, she's coming in, her whole health profile is turning around. She's losing weight, kind of a larger lady, beautiful person. And she said, Paul, this has been crazy for me. I said, and she's like 7 weeks in and total turnaround and just so empowered, so loving life. Inflammation's going down. Just
Which
so many
means
good things.
Pain is going down, and soreness and fatigue and everything.
Yes, all of it. And she said, this is going to sound crazy, Paul, but I'd never had a grape before.
Wow.
Her entire life had been fast food, processed food, boil the water, dump the package in, and just empty calories and no nutrition. That's for so many people is the turning point, because they realize this is not about restricting. This is about discovering all that I can have. Yeah. And there's a world of beautiful foods that you can cook and you can discover and you can make, and you can redesign your kitchen to be a place that is life-giving and creative and beautiful.
That really is incredibly powerful for people. And because I get this question all the time, or statement that, well, your food has to be so boring. Like, what do you eat?
What are you talking about?
You eat meats and vegetables and fruits, and that's all you do?
Yep.
Well, yes, plus nuts and seeds, and there are hundreds of those things, like the nuts and the seeds and the different vegetables and the different fruits. Every meal can look completely different. And every salad.
And like, every salad.
What do you say about salads?
No sad salads.
No sad salads.
A sad salad is iceberg lettuce, a crouton, and some processed cheese with ranch dressing.
So sad.
So sad.
Yes.
But every week my wife and I, and we show people how to do this in Embodied, we do our salad bin. And so our salad bin will have literally 9 different kinds of leaves. It'll have arugula and some kale and some beautiful sweet romaine. And people say, I don't like arugula. Well, no one likes a big pile of arugula, but when you mix it in, it's wonderful. And then we'll cut up some rosemary and some basil, and we'll put 2 kinds of cabbage in there. And so there's like 9 different varieties. Talk about gut biome varieties of vegetable there. Yeah. And then you can build on it all week long. And we have it with eggs. We have it with, you can add beef to it or chicken to it, or you can just add a sweet thing to it. And so I have some kind of salad at almost every meal I have. And the value for the fiber and the gut and now I'm thinking to myself, not only am I not having a processed pile of yuck or fast food greasy yuck, I am doing something that is strengthening me and causing my liver to work properly. My body is like delighting in this stuff. And when you quit tasting all the refined food and the sugar and the salt and the artificial flavors that stimulate your brain but really aren't about your taste buds, you start tasting food again. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the other things that happens on that wonderful night where we cook in the kitchen is we probably have 40 different spices there.
Yes.
And that's the other thing people don't realize is that you don't cook chicken. You can cook chicken 1,000 ways. So you could do it in an Italian way, or you could do it with curry. You could, one of the things that surprised people the most is cinnamon. So
that was my biggest shocker, because we have a huge spice rack at home, and we use a lot of them, but we have never considered cinnamon with meat.
Yes, cinnamon with some ginger and some chicken, and this is why I've fallen in love with chicken again, because it receives spice so well, and you can make it spicy. You can make it, and again, people think they don't like it. Your palate becomes refined, and for the people who say, "Well, isn't your eating boring?" I say, "Well, I think about how I ate before, and what did I eat? Everything was fried. Everything was empty bread. Everything. I wasn't eating a variety of interesting things.
And now I'm sure if you have a cheat meal, it's like it's tasteless almost, right?
It's tasteless.
And do you taste like the bad oils and stuff now?
I do. Yeah. And I taste it's crazy salty or overly sweet, or you can taste the chemical.
Yeah, it's like a fakiness to it. Like you literally taste
that's
the
exactly.
fake.
And then your stomach gets upset, and you're sluggish and you feel horrible. And a program like Embodied, connecting those dots for people is so powerful, because it's this knowledge is power thing, and it's this thing of it's truth. The scriptures talk about truth setting free. When you understand what this is going to do to you, there's just an opportunity to say, I just don't think I want to do that to myself.
Yeah.
And then when you understand, boy, if I ate this, how I would feel, how I would sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's embodied. We've got the 7 pillars, but we have a whole night session on sleep where you come up with a sleep strategy.
Yeah.
How do you get the best, most maximum sleep? And then, we've got a whole thing on stress. One of the cool things is that we really present this as a foundation that you can build on, a beginning point. Well, I think so. So one of the things, being a pastor, that we do is we work with change. We're trying to help people change, become more like Christ in every aspect of their life in a very real way. So we're kind of experts on change. One of the things that helps me when I think about change is the folly of arriving. This is another thing that keeps this from being a diet. One of the worst things in the world you can do is set a goal. You say, okay, I want to lose this weight and then I'll be there. Yeah. Or I want to fit into this dress for this event. Or I want to get my blood sugar to this. Because once you do that, you've arrived. We were never created to arrive.
Yeah.
We're pilgrims. We're supposed to be in process. Movement is motivating. And so you get through Embodied, through the 8 weeks, and the results people are getting are crazy. People are losing 20, 30, more pounds than that. We've had 12 different people who are on either pre-diabetic, diabetic, whose blood numbers have completely turned around. These are just the ones who've communicated to us. One fellow, he sends me texts all the time. After being on this for 4 weeks, he sent me his score for his blood glucose monitor. He said, I've never had numbers like this. 90% in normal range. He said, this has never happened. Wow. He went to his doctor after 6 weeks. His doctor took him off 2 meds. Mm-hmm. He went back after 8 weeks, took him off 3 of his 4 meds, lowered the other one, his metformin, down to 25%. He had numbers to take him off. He said, we're just going to check this. We're going to make sure it's all okay. And so here, 4 weeks later, he hasn't taken them totally off him, but his blood sugar is normal.
And I don't think people realize how remarkable that is, especially when you consider
20 years.
Yeah, what people are told is you have diabetes, and now here's how you manage it for life.
Yes.
When in reality, in 4 weeks, you can completely reverse that for most people.
Yes.
And in 8 weeks, you absolutely can.
Healing, real food, and this was a guy living standard American life. He was drinking Cokes. He was thinking orange juice was good for breakfast, and all the things, right? That old thing, food is medicine, and let medicine be your food and food be your medicine. Just turns out to be true, that God has put healing in that. Yeah. And then again, when we go back to the scriptures and realize, we have texts thousands of years old that have been talking about these things, that we have said theologically, that was just for those people at that time, and we're not under that anymore, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, we may not be under that as a means of required righteousness or salvation, but to ignore that wisdom about how we live and to be thoughtful on how we live, that's just crazy. And then, so with Embodied, you can take any one of the 7 pillars and then you can start doubling down on learning. So you can do a whole deep dive into what can make for great sleep, what is deep sleep, what is REM sleep, and how do you maximize this, and what does it mean about, so like I go to bed pretty much on the same time as a rule, 9 or 10 o'clock. But I'm usually up like 5 o'clock in the morning, I love it. It's just a delight to wake up with the beginning of the day. And
I talk about all the time,
yes.
Like, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, or maybe you always did. Yeah. I go to bed excited for the morning.
Yes.
And it's because of that same thing. I'm getting up at 5
yep.
and I've got my Oura ring and
yes.
I keep track things too.
Yeah.
But I get excited for so many reasons.
Yeah.
My morning routine, just giving gratitude for my life, being out in the sunrise, all of that.
Yep.
But I also love looking at my sleep scores and seeing and
how did I do?
Yeah, how did I do?
I can feel it.
And then, yes, that's what I was going to say. 2 nights ago, for whatever, I know the reason. My son crawled in bed with me and woke me up about 10 times. But I had 14 minutes of deep sleep for the entire night. And oh my gosh, I was just absolutely dragging. As opposed to last night where I got an hour and 16, woke up feeling incredible today.
Well, and that's the thing. You could, again, do a huge deep dive on it. And then you recognize, why do I stop eating don't eat after 7? And what about light? And, what am I looking at? Have I got wind down time? All the different things, hydration is all related to it. Then you can start stacking good behaviors on top of each other, and then it just starts multiplying. Or you could do something on stress. You could learn about, how does prayer integrate with stress? So we do a lot with breath prayer. We do a lot with praying the scriptures. We do a lot with mindfulness, just awareness. And again, you mentioned the beauty of a morning routine.
Yeah.
Just waking up. I live on a lake. It's a wonderful place to wake up, and boy, it's just a lot of fun to sit. I just recently did something I would have never thought I did. Is I switched from coffee. I do mushroom coffee now.
Okay.
I don't even know. I mean, I'm trying it, and I would have never thought I love coffee, and I probably will drink coffee again at some point. But I got to tell you, in terms of just things like anxiety, jitteriness, I think some inflammation and other things like that, I'm having some good results with it.
I've heard that from other people too, and it's something I haven't personally tried either.
And again, I don't know. But that's the whole point, is you're learning, you're experimenting, but just sitting there with my mushroom coffee on my deck, looking at the mist on the water, sitting outside. I try to start every morning by going outside. I live on a lake, so since the ice has been out, I've been cold plunging. So literally,
I was just going to ask about that.
Yes, and I love that. I mean, I would have never thought I would look forward to starting the day by immersing myself in freezing water. But I'm getting of the age now, getting close to 60. You wake up with aches and pains. I can't tell you how many times I'll have a stiff back or something like that, but I'll get in that water and I'll come out, and it just doesn't hurt. So, and it just makes sense, right? It's inflammation and it's swelling and all the things. But you just start stacking behaviors and you learn about it. Then you can learn about spices. Different spices do different things. So what does turmeric do? People take supplements of turmeric, but you can put it in food, and cinnamon does things, and all the different advantages.
When it comes to improving your health, you've heard me say many times, test, don't guess. Well, I'm excited to announce that here at Foundational Health, we can help you do just that. Introducing the Foundational Health Blueprint, a very simple at-home lab test and natural wellness program giving you a complete look at your energy pathways, nutrition, stress and mood, the impact of toxic buildup, gut health, and more. If you're looking for one lab test to give you a clear picture of your overall wellness, this is the one. With this test and personalized guidance from our team, you'll have the education and inspiration you need to look better, feel better, and heal better. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on lab testing, and order your Foundational Health Blueprint today.
You can learn about blood sugar. So one of the things I do, you and I have talked about this, is even right now I'm wearing a blood glucose monitor.
Same here.
And because I'm learning about sugar. Yeah. And what is sugar? Because you need sugar. You must have sugar to live. And yet how much sugar and what's processed sugar and glycemic index for different things. But it helps you learn your body. And this most wonderful thing. So what would happen if you had a 4-week or 6-week class where we wrote it where we'd have medical professionals help us create this, where we teach this is what sugar is. This is good sources, bad sources. This is when you get too much. And then for 2 weeks, you wore a blood glucose monitor and you just kept like a food diary of how things affected it.
I think it's one of the most powerful things people can do.
I agree. And so first time I did it, shocking, I think you and I have talked about this, the thing that shocked me about wearing a blood glucose monitor is the thing that spiked my blood glucose more than it was stress.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I've experienced that exact same.
My number's pretty flat and pretty stable, but I had a particularly stressful funeral one day, and my blood sugar went crazy, spiking all over. Well, I started reading about it. Turns out, what happens under stress is cortisol comes in. Mm-hmm. Cortisol says to your body, we're in trouble. Give me some energy. And so it starts screaming for the pancreas and the liver to start throwing the stores into the blood. And so so the relationship between stress and sleep and nutrition and hydration, it's all this integrated, fearfully and wonderfully made thing.
Yes.
And when you learn that about yourself, you can start, it also helps just understand what's going on. So like, I've had some histories in the past with like panic attacks. I think so many people have. But to understand, okay, what's going on with a panic attack? What has to do, I haven't slept well. I'm certainly feeling this stress. I've not been eating well. I'm dehydrated and my body's in crisis. And so it's telling me in crisis, and understand about cortisol and adrenaline, all the different things, right? Yeah. So again, it's this knowledge is power about how God has made us. And then again, you bring it to the scriptures, and there seems to be descriptions of panic attacks in the Psalms.
Okay. I did not even realize that.
Oh yeah, sure. David talks about I'm tossing and turning in the throes of the sleep. My pillow is covered in sweat. I mean, I cannot breathe. Oh Lord, why have you abandoned me? There's catastrophizing thoughts. All my enemies surround me. I mean, that's a panic attack. Yeah. That's all the things we experience, right? And again, so you just realize how true and real the Bible is. And then when we just teach it as theological propositional truth, we so divorce it from real life.
Well, and I think the fact that you're able to, with this program, combine the theological truth with helping people understand the mechanism of what's happening in their body. It's not just something happening to them because it's happening for a reason. And understanding those mechanisms behind that, and that it is literally God's design. It's a warning signal. You're in crisis mode. Something's very wrong. And that is not the analogy that I always use. Like, if that happened to your car, you're not putting a piece of black tape over the warning light. You're figuring it out.
Right.
And so figuring it out through stress management, through sleep, through nutrition,
through prayer,
hydration,
through Bible study, through community, being with other people.
That was the example I was going to use with, again, my Oura Ring. I reference this a lot lately. And no, I don't sell Oura Rings. I'm just a big fan. But I love what I do. I'm a chiropractor, as you know, and I love adjusting people. We have a very busy office. Yeah. And I had a moment a week ago, well, 2 weeks ago, actually, where the number one thing that stresses me out is making people wait when we get busy. And for multiple reasons, it had this like perfect storm of, I had like 15 people literally waiting for me. Yep. And I was kind of in panic mode, felt like my heart rate just going up. I was starting to sweat. And then because of the Embodied program, I did literally a breath prayer.
There you go.
I put my hands on the person's back in front of me. I looked out the window at the beautiful blue skies. I did a breath prayer, and I looked at the clock at that time. Well, later that night when I went home, I told Sarah this story, and then we pulled up my Oura Ring app, and I saw from 4:17, from that point, the stress just dropped to a perfectly normal level, and it stayed that way the rest of the time. Still continued to be busy, still had people waiting. It was just how I handled that, and that was strictly through breath prayer at that point.
Well, and that's the integration of all things spiritual. And so what I mean by that is that we don't think of eating good food as a spiritual activity, but it's a lot like prayer. Yeah. It's just as spiritual as prayer. We don't think of, moving our bodies, exercise. We haven't talked about that because that's another part of it. Learning to move, learning to stretch, learning how your body works. That's another. You want to burn up some adrenaline, some cortisol. Yeah. Take a walk. Yes. Take a prayer. It's all integrated. One of the first, this is a little in the weeds theology, but one of the first heresies to really challenge Christianity was something called Gnosticism. Okay. And it was an extreme form of Platonism. And Platonism was this idea that there's a physical world and the spiritual world. This is greatly simplified. But the spiritual world is real and true and good, and the physical world was a mistake. Some bad God created it, and it's evil, and it's an illusion, and it should be resisted. And so the idea in Gnosticism was there was a dichotomy between the spiritual and the physical. And it expressed itself in them saying, well, if you're spiritually good, it doesn't matter what you do physically. So you have to care for your body. You can even do immoral things with your body. And even things like Jesus was spiritually here, but he wasn't really physical here. And so it created this false dichotomy. Well, in the modern world, we're like modern Gnostics. Well, we wouldn't say that theologically, but in terms of how we treat ourselves, that when we don't care for ourselves physically, That is a spiritual issue. Relationships are a spiritual issue. Sleep is a spiritual issue. You say, where do you get that sleep thing in the Bible? Well, just the fact that one of the 10 commandments is to rest.
That's pretty powerful.
I mean, it made the same list as don't kill people. I mean, it's incorporated everything, that everything is made to rest, and things that don't rest break. To the point where God says, you can't really be right with me if you don't honor your limits and acknowledge I am the one without limits. You aren't the one with limits. And so how deeply spiritual all of this is. Again, I think that's one of the things that has given this power in people's lives. It's interesting. I presented Embodied to part of a group called True Wellness, and we were bringing different medical and health people together to kind of just talk about, making our region one of the healthiest regions in the area.
Yeah, so exciting.
It's very exciting stuff. And I was presenting, and wonderful doctor from a local hospital who's a functional medicine doctor. Afterwards, she came. She's a believer. And she said, we have something very similar to this we do at the hospital, and truth be told, it doesn't really work. It says our results are not what she said. Something like, our results are not what we'd like them to be, because people come in, they meet with the nutritionist, and we say all the things, everything you're saying, and we show the mindset, things like this. But there is something missing here. And she said the two things that were missing. One is you guys do it within community, and the other thing is the belief component, the faith component that's so central to it. It moves it to an existential, higher level. And so we were talking about doing a version of this, even someone said, well, could you do a secular version of it? And her comment was, she said, don't you dare take the spirituality out of it, because that's the power of it. And I don't know what you'd put in its place. I don't know how you talk about blessing and curse.
Yeah.
I don't know how you talk about honoring God with your body. I mean, even the idea, how crazy is it that God in the incarnation became a body?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. So that's how important the body is, that God took on flesh and became one of us, therefore honor God with our bodies. I mean...
Are you familiar with Gary Thomas? He wrote a book called Every Body Matters.
Yes.
Yeah, and in his book, and this is something that I've referenced many times over the years, and I feel like you took his concepts and put them into something that anybody and everybody, especially as a Christian, can use to make massive change in their life. Yep. But he talks about kingdom years.
Yeah.
Like, you can go through life living the standard American lifestyle, eating the standard American diet, and you can still be a good Christian and, do all those things.
Sure.
But what if you did something different, like Embodied, and you're now not only adding quality to your kingdom years while you're here on this earth, living out God's kingdom and spreading the message of Jesus Christ being our Savior, but you're also adding years to those kingdom years to be able to do that. Quality years. Yeah. So, and I feel like this just embodies that perfectly.
Well, again, the things people are saying and the energy that people who have gone through Embodied have for what we're doing, and they're wanting to lead groups, they're wanting to be there, their lives are being changed. They're not only losing weight, they're not only having less pain, arthritis symptoms, brain fog, mental health. So one of the things we did when we wrote Embodied is that we had probably 40 different healthcare professionals review it. We wanted to make sure because there's nothing really controversial in Embodied.
Yeah.
So if you're like a way this side vegan or the way this side, keto person, you're going to look at this and say, yeah, it works. Because we're basically saying no processed food, no sugar. Mm-hmm. No one's advocating for more sugar, more processed food, and to drink your calories. No one's saying, we need is less sleep. No one's saying that, right? Yeah. And there's people who do that 89%, and then they do their thing above that, so whatever it is. So we wanted this to be reviewed by a diverse group of people and just got great results, a lot of good feedback, tweaked it, fixed it. Well, one of the people we showed it to was the head, I won't say where, of a large medical system's psychiatry department. So not just a psychiatrist, but head of the whole thing. And this is what she said to me. She said, she got real quiet after we went over and looked at it. And she looked at me and she kept looking like she wasn't sure she was going to say what she was going to say. And she said, Paul, all I do anymore is prescribe meds to kids. So that's all I feel like I do anymore. And what happens is every time they come in, I say to them, listen, I can give you this med you're requesting, or you could change your kid's diet. You could limit their screen time to 1 hour a day. You could get them outside. You could get them into a hobby and an activity. You could help them find a good relationship with friends, and they would get the exact same result.
Wow.
And she said, and I say that to every single person. She says, not one time has anyone take me up on this.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Wow.
They all want the med. And again, it's a form of Gnosticism that my body's, not who I am. And certainly there's a spirit and there's soul that goes beyond, but even that is going to be reanimated in a resurrected body.
Yeah.
So to discount that is the folly of our world, and the church has bought into it. Do you know what the number one? So I just read the statistic the other day. Number one indicator of whether or not you're obese in the United States, one of the main indicators, or one of the ones, is whether you go to church.
No kidding.
Yeah. And the theory is that when you go to church, there's a lot of vices you're not allowed to do, but we celebrate overeating.
Oh yeah, donuts everywhere.
Potlucks. We pride ourselves in the fact that we can make great food, and we love with food, and we give with food. If you get sick, a food train will get started, and you will get inundated with
more unhealthy
yummy crap. Yes, right.
And how many pounds are you down since you made it?
So I lost about 80 pounds.
Wow,
yeah,
that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And eating more food than you've
and I didn't try to lose a pound. It was never about losing weight. Yeah. I've never worked less on losing weight and lost, as much weight.
And because you didn't set a weight goal, you just have...
And I don't have one now.
What we talk about here is the little y versus the big Y. Yes. The little y is, I want to lose 20 pounds. The big Y is, I want to add kingdom years, quality of life.
So what's much more exciting to me is, so I do, again, I learned from Mark Hyman. I don't know where you get your blood test. I do a functional medicine test through Quest Lab, Mark Hyman. So I get 130 biomarkers.
I do that amongst other things.
Yes. So good. So powerful to see the changes in my blood markers. So when I started, my biological age, however they calculated, was I was 8 years older than my actual age. Yeah. I'm now 7 years younger.
Wow, that's
so that's
awesome.
A 15-year swing. And then I look at, my inflammation markers, my liver. So going in, I also do some wellness working with Rebecca Witt at Holistic Nutrition, who's just fabulous, a great friend. I owe her a great deal. When I came in, I had all the markers for metabolic syndrome, fatty liver disease, chronic inflammation, all the targets. My blood markers are just accepted. There's a couple that are high, but I'm trying to figure out, but they're just pristine. Mm-hmm. And my liver is completely, and I can feel it. I can feel the difference. So, and again, I targeted the liver. I did some detoxing. I sauna just about every day. I love sauning. So they're
It's one of my favorite things.
One of my favorite things. And so the body's ability to turn itself around is absolutely stunning. So much more than the weight loss. I feel better. I look better, I think.
Absolutely.
But I'm just so unfussed about calories and about weight, and it plateaus and then it drops again, or, went up a little bit and goes down a little bit. But it's, and it's not even a thing, okay, I got to keep doing the thing to keep it off. I don't even think like that, because I'm just going to eat real food. And there's just certain things I'll never eat again. There's certain things I'll never eat again. We talked about the Dorito thing, right?
Yes, I was actually going to ask you about that.
I just can never imagine eating a Dorito again.
Do you mind sharing that whole?
Sure. So this actually, give credit where credit's due, is out of Mark Hyman's book, Food Fix. So I mentioned this in a sermon. So we did a whole teaching series on this, Whole and Holy. And in the fall, we're going to be teaching through 1 Corinthians. And 1 Corinthians is all about how to live embodied, how to live in the flesh, in a pagan world, the city of Corinth that was working against their well-being. How do you live a kingdom perspective in a pagan world? Mm-hmm. So we're going to teach it again. But I told this story as part of this, and I've told this story many times, just Doritos. So Doritos are engineered. So they intentionally made these chips. So they spent, and this was how many years ago Doritos created, $20 million just for a lab, just to create Doritos. And they go for the bliss point, and that's the right amount of fat and carbohydrates and sugar and crunch, and then chemical processes they put in there to stimulate different parts of the
and
brain.
monitoring right? Monitoring those brain signals.
And what they don't measure is taste. So you think, okay, how are they going to test it? They're going to get 20 people in the room and say, everybody taste, which one do you like better, this one or this one? Don't do any of that. What those labs have are MRI machines. So they will put you in an MRI machine and they will measure what part of your brain lights up. So it's not even about nutrition. It's not about natural craving. It's not about natural desire. It's a chemical addictive thing, and they have created Doritos. There's a reason why. I mean, if you ever just really think about Doritos and you're tasting it, particularly if you haven't eaten one for a long time and you taste it, they don't taste good.
Yeah.
They're crazy salty. They're chemically.
100%.
They nacho cheese. Well, it's not cheese. I don't know what it is, but it's nacho. It's not cheese, right? They just don't taste good because it's not food. I mean, it used to be a corn-like substance. Corn's not even real food anymore. I mean, with glyphosate and just the GMO and all the things they do with corn, that's so horrible. And then the chemicals they put on it, it's not milk. They can't even call it cheese because it doesn't meet the qualification to have enough dairy in it. And so they've given you something that is meant to stimulate you. You'll eat it past the point you're full, past the point you're satiated, because it's spiking your brain. It's dopamine. When I've got a book here, again, a secular book, but been so good. It's Dopamine Nation by Anna Lembke. And just understanding reward and pursuit and addiction related to all of this, because that's the other side of it, is that food addiction is a real thing. Yes. Particularly sugar. I've heard Huberman from Huberman Lab. His comment is that sugar is as addictive as cocaine. Yeah. And I just believe that. This is a big thing in my wife's world, and she's done Herculean work on it. But just the understanding that, particularly the way we take sugar. Sugar is supposed to be a little bit of fruit, a little bit here, and then we crunch it all up, we boil it down, and then we concentrate a bunch of it here. Now you have this big ball of something you're supposed to get in small amounts. We wouldn't do that with cocaine or heroin or anything else. And then we eat it, and then it spikes our dopamine receptors. So then not only do we want that and pursue it to get it again and again, because it spikes and it's out of balance, we want more and more and more to get the same pleasure response. And so we have to up and up and up and up it. What is even more tragic then is that when we're on this thing of eating all this high sugary stuff and cakes and an apple or an orange sounds, we can't enjoy it.
Yeah, because it doesn't have that high level.
It doesn't have that high. And so we're not only not enjoying the sugar spiky craziness, we're not enjoying that. This is the Apostle Paul saying, what I want to do, I hate to do. What I don't want to do, I do. Why am I like this? It's because it's a dopamine problem. It's that you've taken something that God intended to be a blessing and you made it a curse, and now it's out of control in your life. So you're not enjoying that, but now you're not enjoying simple things. One example, I actually spoke on this last weekend, more explicit, but equally the same kind of thing is sexual immorality and like pornography. This is why pornography is such a damning thing, is because you get this huge dopamine thing from seeing this image in an artificial way in a delirious system that it didn't cost you anything to get there. There's no relationship, there's no commitment, there's no love, there's no work to it. And so you get this artificial experience which doesn't become enough, so you get more and more and more and more and wilder and crazier. And now you go home to your spouse and you don't even want that. So the number of young people who are losing the ability to enjoy sexuality at all because it's gotten out of control in their life. And just apply that to dopamine or to food, to sexuality, to gaming, to our technology phones. So it's the young father who comes home after a long day on a beautiful June day, long day, beautiful sunny day, and they think, I got hours till the sun goes down. I could be in the yard or take a walk or be with my kids, be with my wife, but I'm going to go in the basement and play video games. Yeah.
Sadly, I hear that all the time.
Yeah, and I'm addicted in that respect. And so I'm just broken by this. Our phones, the scrolling thing, the binge watching, that's all the same thing as food.
Doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling is a huge thing. It's the person who comes home and says, I'm going to go and do some gardening. I'm going to go and take a walk. I'm going to enjoy this beautiful evening. But then they sit on their couch, and the next thing they know, it's been 2 hours of just looking at reels.
And I don't think most people tie that into dopamine.
No, it is exactly dopamine.
Yeah.
And so, and again, no one finishes 2 hours of doom scrolling going, man, that was great.
Yeah, correct.
Whew, I'm alive.
Instead, they're like, what just happened?
Yeah. It definitely is dopamine. So it's actually designed. It's the same technology as the Doritos. Yeah. So one of the most addictive functions about social media is the like button. I don't know if you've seen the research on this.
I have about that one.
Yeah, incredible book, Ancient Generation, where when they added a like button, so a person puts a picture on, and they get a like. Oh, that's a little shot of dopamine. Mm-hmm. And then they get another like. And then if they get a bunch of likes, they get a lot of dopamine. So they're constantly being drawn back to this thing.
So much so that they have a notification turned on their phone, so they get a ding every time.
Bing,
yeah.
Bing. And it's Pavlov, right?
Yeah.
Pavlov and the dog. I mean, it's so, again, this world is designed to make us unhealthy.
Yeah.
And we have to be not of this world. We have to be intentionally countercultural. We have to design our world. We need to set parameters. We need to create environments for us and for our kids where the healthier choice becomes the easier choice.
Well, in foundational health, we have 5 pillars, and the 5th one is intentional.
Yeah.
And that's
Beautiful.
exactly what we talk about. It has to, you have to put intentional thought into this. Otherwise, there's no way to get off that dopamine train.
Yep.
If you aren't intentional.
That's exactly right.
About it. And then going back to the sugar, 2 things I want to mention. The lab studies, they've actually done lab studies with rats on cocaine versus sugar.
Yep.
They get them addicted to both, and then they give them access to both. And the rats choose the sugar 100% of the time over the cocaine. Yeah. It's really nuts. Yeah. And then the other one that I wanted to mention, because I think this is incredibly powerful for people to realize, is something that we discussed at lunch where, and I've seen this thousands of times over the last couple of decades of working with people, where they will say, like, I've given up sugar, like I'm trying to kick the sugar habit, and I've really cut sugar out of my life. Well, what that means is they've cut out cakes and cookies,
not bread
and suckers,
potatoes and rice.
But yes, and now they become a bread, potato chip
Because I don't like sweets, I like salty. It's
and it's the
sugar.
Same thing. It's just pure sugar. And most people just don't realize that they're still addicted. They're just addicted to a different form of sugar.
Well, that's what would be the fun thing about doing a blood glucose class.
Yes.
And with a blood glucose monitor, and talk about the hidden kinds of sugar. Yeah. I actually was just listening to a podcast where the guy was laying out 5 things, and he asked the host to choose which had the most sugar, and rice was on the table. The candy bar, spoiler alert, the candy bar of all the 5 things was the least sugary thing.
Yeah, Dr. Oz did a special on that years ago.
Yes, the whole thing of just the hidden thing of sugar, and again, the connection with sugar and cancer and dementia, and it's when you start learning these things, that helps the harder choice become the easier choice. The healthy choice become the easier choice. You just say, I just don't want that. I want to be alive while I'm living. Yeah. It's not even for me about living a long time. My days are numbered by God, and that belongs to God. I don't worry about that. I'm going to heaven. I'm good. Yeah. But while I'm alive, I want to be alive. I want to be alive for my kids and my grandkids. I want to enjoy life. I don't want to live in aches and pains. I don't want to be full of brain fog. I want to be able to do things for God and with people. And so to be alive while I'm living is what so much of this is about.
Nutridyne is my number 1 choice for the vast majority of my family supplements. I'm a huge fan of nearly everyone taking what I call the foundational 4 supplements: a multivitamin, a spore-based probiotic, omega-3 fish oil, and vitamin D3 with K2. The large majority of people are deficient in many of these nutrients, and they are the building blocks to gut health, immune system strength, brain health, heart health, and every other aspect of your health. Don't fall into the trap of chasing symptoms with supplements, and instead start to rebuild your health with the foundational 4. We partnered with Nutridyne so that you can save 15% on every order, and not just with the foundational 4, but all of your other supplements as well. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Shop Brands, and then Nutridyne, set up your account, and you're all set to automatically get 15% off all orders. Now let's get back to the Foundational Health Podcast. A couple things I'd like to touch on before we close up. The alcohol experiment.
Yes, I've got this wonderful thing we're doing called the alcohol experiment, and so this is also a dopamine issue. So I deal in the backside of alcohol in Wisconsin culture. So I was sharing with you at lunch. I had my first beer when I was 8. So 8 years old. It was Christmas Eve. My father gave it to me as a Christmas present. And I still remember being in this house, blue smokes, everybody smoked inside. Every adult I ever knew drank.
Yeah,
I mean,
same.
I grew up at a church where chicken dinners, there was a beer tent, and someone drove father home because he was going to be in the beer tent. And so I just grew up in that culture. I grew up in bar culture, grew up in taverns. I'm still to this day very comfortable in taverns. The smell is familiar. It's almost comforting.
Actually, same thing
Yeah,
for me.
so
We
I
talk
get
about
it.
that all
The
time.
ball game on the TV, dice on the bar, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So totally get that. And so I grew up in that culture. It's Wisconsin culture. People don't realize how sick Wisconsin is on this. So Wisconsin is officially the drunkest state in the union.
Yeah.
So 7 out of 10 of the drunkest cities, and they have real metrics for measuring this, are in Wisconsin. Eau Claire currently is number 4. It's been as high as number 2 in the nation.
And the crazy thing about all of that is people share those things out of
Hubris.
Like they're excited about it.
Yep.
Like, oh, this is awesome. Look at this. We made 7. I mean, it's so built into the culture that people are excited to say we have 7 of the 10 drunkest cities.
Well, we celebrate it. We celebrate it as some kind of weird badge of honor, and that something is really cool about binge drinking, about drinking to the point that you lose control of your senses and your sensibilities. Long story short is I became a Christian in high school. I quit drinking because I was at a real conservative church. I remember my high school graduation. I told my mom I don't want any alcohol. And I still remember her embarrassed trying to explain to my Uncle Bobby why there was no alcohol at my graduation party. No one stayed for the party very long. And then I worked for a mission board for about 15 years, and we couldn't drink. And then when I moved here, we started the church, I could drink, and I started drinking again. Partly because I was really drawn to this thing of I love my family, and I just wanted one of my uncles to say, you want to have a beer? Yeah, I'll have a beer. And so it was a thing where I'd have a beer every now and again. And then it turned into something we did on weekends. And then it turned into something we were doing every weekend, where I was never getting drunk, but I was drinking. And I remember distinctly one time where I noticed, because I started getting to bourbons and scotches, and again, would never get drunk, but it was just a thing. But I remember it was a Tuesday night, and I was having a scotch, and I realized I'm drinking alone. And I really, really have been looking forward to this drink all day long. And so I just started having a conversation with myself about that. This was a while back. And so I haven't really drank for about a year and a half. Back in January, a little before that, I met with a fellow new to the church, Brad Mitchell. We're actually going to share his story in church this coming Sunday.
I know Brad. Wonderful.
He's a wonderful
Yeah.
man. Great guy. Yes. He met with me. He told me about this book. He said he had a clearly alcoholic friend, and then he mentioned the book to him, and the guy said, "I'm going to do it. You should do it with me." And Brad did it for him, and then Brad realized just what I had said, that this thing that was occasional became every weekend, and then started creeping into the week, and then was every day, and then he discovered this alcohol experiment book. And what this basically is a 30-day challenge to quit drinking. To sign up for this thing, and you get an email every day, you get a text every day, you can be part of an online chat group. It's not a Christian program, although she dedicates the book to Jesus. So I think she's a believer. It's different than the 12 steps in that it's so positive, it's so proactive, and it's everything we're talking about. It's about giving people information. So some of what she would say are things like alcohol is not being honest. Alcohol will lie.
Yeah,
So-
that's the part that's so powerful to me,
Yes.
is the truth versus the lies.
Yeah, so everything you think you're getting from alcohol, you're getting the opposite.
Yeah.
So people say, well, I just drink so I can get to sleep. Truth is, it knocks you out, it drugs you, but it doesn't put you in REM sleep, and it wakes you up at 4 a.m, and you can't get back to sleep. So you actually find yourself not getting so, it helps me with stress. Actually, it causes you to spike your cortisol the next day. So the next day you're going to be carrying more stress because you drank than less. It's things like, it's a social lubricant. Actually, ultimately, statistically, we know it leads to more and more isolation that you start drinking alone. Yeah. You spend the majority of your time not with people drinking.
And it destroys relationships.
Everything we think we're getting from alcohol, we're getting the opposite. And like I say, I'm on the backside of Wisconsin alcohol culture. So at church, weekly, another divorce, another guy losing his job because of DUI, we're scrambling to find someone in an inpatient program. We're managing kids who are about to go into foster care because their parents are incarcerated or can't function, or we get a grandmother calling for we see it. If the statistics are true, then 37% of our area has an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. Yeah. 37%. If that's true of our church, that's thousands of people. Yeah. So I realized it's been a long time since I've said anything about this. And so we came back and we're challenging the church. So I started a series last week called Risky, because one of the 7 pillars of lifestyle health for us is avoid risky behaviors. So that looks like drugs, alcohol, sexual immorality, which is very unhealthy. So we're trying to help people look at things in their life. I think gaming is in that category of risky.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think our phones are in the category of risky. I think standard American diet is in that category of risky. Now, some of these things we must do. I think your work can become addictive and dopamine spiking kind of thing. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to say to people, specifically on alcohol, is take a 30-day break just to reevaluate your relationship with it. And if you find yourself really defensive about it, you find yourself really kind of annoyed by we're even talking about it, then you should probably do it just to see if you can do it. Yeah. And then when you start getting this information, you realize, oh my goodness, not only is alcohol giving me the opposite of what I think I'm getting, it's like one of the main indicators for like 8 kinds of cancers, for dementia, for liver disease off the chart. And tell you what, 37% of Americans have fatty liver disease of some sort? I mean, crazy. Well, so when you start getting armed with this, you come back to the point where you would say, maybe I don't want alcohol in my life at all, or maybe I'm going to have it occasionally on a vacation, but I sure don't want it regularly. When I recognize that taking a drink, it'll take 4 days for my system to overcome that. Just one drink.
Yeah, some of the research on that is just unbelievable.
Yes. And then people say, well, I've heard there's some health benefits of it. All of that has been debunked repeatedly. Yeah. Alcohol is a toxic substance. Neurotoxin. So the reason you throw up when you drink too much is that your body saving your life. Yeah. I mean, from you've poisoned yourself.
Yes.
And so we're doing this alcohol experiment. We're going to have people sign up, do the alcohol challenge, and then we've written a 30-day devotion to go with it. So we've connected the spiritual aspect because it's all there. All the Jesus stuff is here. She just doesn't give Jesus credit. And my hope is that, one, it'll help people who don't realize they have a problem get free from it. It'll help people just realize, for no other reason, just the health reasons, I'm going to change my relationship with alcohol. And again, the number of conversations I've had over the years as a pastor where a wife comes in and says he drinks every day, he's different, and just what people will discover. Okay, if I quit drinking every night, because we'd be amazed how many people have to have 2-3 beers, have to have a scotch or 2 every night. Yeah. And they go to work, they pay their bills, they go to church, for goodness sakes. But what would you have to give to your family? What would you have to give to yourself? Yes. What would it look like to just fall asleep naturally? Again, Wisconsin, we are so sick on this, and we celebrate it. Yeah. What we should be embarrassed by, we take pride in.
And I talk about alcohol quite a bit on this podcast, which initially was very difficult for me because I shared my history. Like I was not the problem drinker of like I just needed to have a little bit every day. Right. I was a massive binge drinker. Yep. I mean, I've been blackout drunk probably 1,000 times in my life. Okay. Just horrible problems with it. And when my wife and I met, we were both problem drinkers. Yeah. And actually,
wasn't a problem, right? And we're really good at it, right?
We both have connections back to Valley Brook.
Yes, yes.
without a doubt, had we not started going to Valley Brook Church together at the time, there's no chance we would have ever ended up together.
Kendall Anderson and the whole group.
That's when I first started, when Kendall was there. I mean, our relationship was a mess. Like we would have horrible fights, just, yelling at each other, never abusive physically, but mentally abusive. And then we had a sober conversation about, like, we've literally never even had an argument sober. Not once. Every problem that we ever had, and we had like 3 breakups, and we were never getting back together, and, just every single time it was alcohol. And so we decided, like, hey, let's try not drinking for a while. Let's try not answering those texts to go out with our friends on the weekend, which is a difficult thing when you're trapped in that world. And what we realized is we were more addicted to the socialization and the bar life than we were to the alcohol. So it wasn't a problem at all for us to give up alcohol at the time. And we still both consume alcohol, as I told you, on vacations and special occasions a little bit here and there. But for me, it's like twice a year now. But it is the most powerful thing that I have ever done besides becoming a Christian. Like, it's just so incredible. And so that's why I talk about it a lot, is because that's what I want for people. Like, if they just get through, like you said, those 30 days and they also stop believing in the lies about alcohol and realize the actual truths and then experience that, man.
You kind of reach the conclusion, why am I doing this? Why would I want this in my life?
That's exactly
and the money you save, and I mean, there's just all
you
the
could go
things.
on and on.
That's a great story, man. I mean, alcohol changes who you are. I mean, they talk about, it removes inhibition, the part of your brain, consequence part of your brain,
I always used to say alcohol makes me a better person.
Right.
That was one of those lies.
I'm more fun.
Yes,
exactly. That I can't have fun without it. All the things.
Yeah.
Are you really having fun? I was recently listening to a person who was talking about quitting drinking, and she said, I realized, that one of the lies I believe is I had more fun, but I was at a concert and I had quit drinking, and all my friends were up in the bar, and we had paid all this money to hear this band that we love, and they weren't listening. And I realized I was having more fun than they were. Because I'm here and I'm present. All the different aspects of what life and health and peace is. It does turn out that God's way does turn out to be the best way when you apply it to every nook and cranny of your life. The verse we're using to guide us in this series we're in called Risky is that verse where the Apostle Paul is talking to the First Corinthians, people who are trying to integrate faith into kingdom faith into their whole life, where he says to them, everything is permissible, but not everything is helpful. Everything is permissible, but I won't be mastered by anything. So there are things that are allowed. So people say, well, does the Bible say you shall not drink? Well, no, Jesus made water from wine. Wine's actually a metaphor for joy. I get it. Their wine, I think, was very different than our bourbon.
I strongly believe that as well.
It's stronger and way distilled and just the whole thing. But the point is, can you? Sure. But when you reach the point where it is no longer helpful or beneficial, and then you reach the point that it's controlling you, well, then there's a point where wisdom kicks in and says, okay, I need to, at the very least, reevaluate my relationship with this stuff. And for most people, moderation, a lot of people, moderation can work. But for most people, it's like, for a season, I got to get it out of my life. I just got to get rid of it. And then get back to recalibrate. And then I have to ask myself, what kind of relationship do I want to have with this thing? And that's true of your phone. That's true of gaming. So figuring out the wisdom of bringing these things into balance. And food, too. You got to eat. And we want to eat. In fact, I tell people, enjoy food, love food, enjoy cooking together. It's the social connection for so many beautiful things. We're just getting to a point where we're restricting it so that we can come back and we can rediscover it and have a healthy relationship with it.
Well, in closing, couple things.
Sure.
Number one is anytime I have a guest on the podcast, I ask them about our tagline here at Foundational Health, which is make health your hobby. And we've already touched a bunch on this throughout the podcast today, but what are some of the things that you now do just on a daily basis? They're just natural for you and they're also fun. Like, it's just become your hobby.
Our whole world has changed on this, and we have really created an environment to the point that even some of my kids, I did not raise my kids the way you raised your kids. I had a deep regret on that. We did a lot of frozen pizzas and a lot of macaroni and cheese. But but our whole life has been changed. So everything from what used to be our beer fridge is now different kinds of sparkling waters. We cook together. So almost every night, my wife and I cook together. So instead of her cooking dinner, we cook together, and we got a routine. You go into my pantry, and you're going to see glass containers and plastics out of my house. It's cold plunging. I bought a sauna. I have body scan scales. I'm starting to garden on a level we never have before. We've gardened, but I really want to grow real food and see how that works. And just the process of gardening is incredibly healing. So we have a granddaughter, a wonderful story about my granddaughter. So my daughter, who was not raised healthy, her and her husband made up her mind. They're in that wonderful young generation of youngest adults we have right now that wants more than the couple generations in front of them, millennials and boomers and whatnot. So my granddaughter, who's going to be 3, never had refined sugar, never had processed food. She comes and we feel that she eats kimchi and avocado and
that's so awesome.
Peppers, and she just devours it. And her plate is just, so the idea that kids won't eat healthy food, they'll eat what you eat, and eventually, so Livy and my daughter has to start figuring out, because eventually she's, what are you eating there? Because, so and they're great. They're way ahead of the curve. But she's fermenting her own vegetables. She's gardening with the children. I mean, so it's a beautiful thing. But all of that, again, cold plunging, marking my steps. I just noticed today I have a 45-day streak on my steps, so that was awesome. So on again, I got devices and I, there is a place where you can obsess about this and unhealthy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, and like you can just tell like the way you talk about it. It's
winsome
fun for you.
Yes, it's winsome. It's fun, and I don't freak out. Yeah. So again, I'm not the guy. So like probably for a couple months now, my weight has been pretty plateaued. And it's flexed within a 5 pound. I just don't fuss about it, And now I'm thinking, okay, get into summer. I might try a couple things. Like I want to so in real time. What am I doing? I'm investigating different forms of switching up my resistance training, because I think I probably need to build some muscle so that my metabolism burns differently.
Well, I have a wonderful Fit for Life program. I would love to
saw
share
that
with you.
on your thing webpage, and I was going to download it and say, all right, maybe this is my deal. My uncle, maybe some cowbells, and I'm going to buy some weights. I resistance train, but not seriously. Yeah. And then just some other things. My heart, maybe I need some cardio, and because I do the steps and I'm moving, I'm constantly in the yard. But that kind of thing. Yeah, and that's the thing. You can try different things. You don't have to be doing the same thing all the time. People say, I get bored with exercise. Well, do a different exercise.
Yeah, correct.
Learn pickleball, for goodness sakes. Or go join a volleyball team, or golf. Just don't use a cart. Walk the course.
And that is the whole fun of it. And I think that's the whole idea behind being intentional, making health your hobby, is that it is a constant growth process. Yep. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming in any way. It just can be fun.
You know what's boring is eating the same processed crap food every day.
While gaming
or sitting at the table.
Yes.
And you think, no one just looks at that, man, this is the life I dreamed of. Yeah. This is how I want to live. I'm going to look back 40 years and say, man, I lived my life well. People say you're boring, you're restrictive, or boy, I feel free.
Yeah. And if that's not the perfect example, like exactly what you described, like, somebody sitting there, and everybody would agree they're not going to look back in their life and say, like, this is the life. Like, I've loved this last 40 years of gaming. If that's not a perfect example of the dopamine addiction, I don't know what is.
Right.
Yeah. You're just so trapped in it, you don't know how to get out of it.
That's right.
But there is a way out.
We even talked about the cannabis thing and how that's taking all over everything. Yeah. There's so many applications to this. When you get these principles and this mindset, man, you start seeing what health. You start chasing health. You're not managing sickness. You're not just trying to avoid things. You're going after something. Yeah. It becomes fun. The hobby thing is a very cool way of thinking about it. Yeah. I noticed that when we reconnected last year at the summit, that's just a cool way to think about this.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. And could you tell, so obviously we're going to have links in the show notes to Jacob's Well and all of that. Yep. Well, just throw out a few ways that people can stay connected to you, stay connected to Jacob's
So
Well.
if you go to jacobswellchurch.church, you can hear everything from our weekly podcast to all of our message. You can go back and listen to the Whole and Holy series. We have a whole page dedicated to Embodied, so you can listen to the first kind of introduction paragraph. It gives you the real heart and feel for it. If you're at a point where, emotionally healthy, you're not doing well emotionally, you got a class for that. Relationally healthy, you really don't know how to have healthy relationships. It just seems like all your relationships are a little toxic, even the ones at church. That might be financial peace. If you've had a loss, we got grief share. If you're going through divorce, we got divorce care. I mean, we really try to make the gospel really meet people where they're at in the real nitty-gritty of life. So if the other organization I'm part of, you might be aware of, is truewellness.org. So this is a regional group. This is not explicitly Christian group, although everybody's in it's Christian, more or less. Wonderful people, where we're trying to bring health and wellness with the Blue Zone group to make our region a blue zone, one of the healthiest regions in the world. I'm chairman of the board for a group called a school called Venture Academy, ventureacademy.org. Such a cool thing going on there. I wish I had a year to talk about the amazing things. Our kids are outside 3 and 4 times a day, innovation labs, different aspects of learning. We're constantly thinking about mental health and not only educational outcomes, but great people, faith-based. It's a cool thing going on at Venture.
I would imagine is only going to get better with the upcoming farm and the new school being built.
Right next to it. So we've done a lot of starting here in the last 4 or 5 years. It was funny. I was going out to the car one Sunday morning with my wife, and I walked out into the kitchen. I said, I got an idea. She said, no. You've had enough ideas. Here's an idea. Get in the car. And so I was told I wasn't allowed to have any more ideas that day.
Well, I might agree with her on that, because you guys have so many amazing things going on that maybe stick with I think it's Michael Collins that wrote the book Good to Great.
Yes.
And what you're doing right now is great. So
it is fun. Yeah.
Stick with it.
Well, you too. We're brothers in this, and it's been so fun to reconnect with you. And so...
Well,
thanks for having me on. Super fun.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for everything that you're doing. And my prayer for you and Jacob's Well and the entire congregation is that this Embodied program is something that is adopted in churches worldwide. Yeah. It's such a need.
Yeah, we should just change the world. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Foundational Health Podcast. As always, if you would like to learn more about making health your hobby, visit our website at foundationalhealth365.com and follow me on Facebook at Kevin Schultz, DC, Foundational Health.